tonight's main story, the New World development team has announced huge changes to the game, including season passes with free and paid reward tracks, major PvP updates, the long-awaited balance changes for weapons, crafting changes, an extended roadmap with major announcements including transmog, 3 new expeditions, mounts, more cross-world content with arenas and expeditions being added to the previously planned Outpost Rush being cross-server as well, and even a new arena map.
Ooh.
And the funny thing is, that's not even the big news. There is also a full-size expansion to the game coming this fall, with just a ton more out there to be had. Like there is so much news that dropped today. It's not even funny. Yeah.
It was a bit manic today. Not least me trying to sort of like piece together this actual setup to actually function rather than just function sort of in a sort of like, I think it will function, but actually work kind of thing, and work and not be completely disjointed and crazy. Not only that, but we also having like an absolute ton and a half of like content to go through, because not only did the sort of announcement of seasons and the sort of like roadmap kind of come out kind of thing as well, like a sort of a much more detailed kind of roadmap, but we also had a dev update video of like 40 minutes of content to go through, or that we can go through as well, right? So that's kind of crazy.
Absolutely. So basically there's just an epic amount of stuff that we're doing, and it's epic amount of stuff that the team over at New World is doing, and they're knocking it out of the park. I know a lot of people looked at the current event, and we might as well cover that first, actually. The Crassus event here. It's not a bad event, but you can tell that it was something that they wanted to throw in the short term to allow people to kind of have a little bit of fun. It's basically world bosses. You kill them, you get some added bonuses by killing them once a day, at least for 8 days, and then you get some pretty cool rewards.
Yeah.
It gives you gypsum, umbral shards, special crafting mod that doesn't seem to have dropped yet, but I can say that it was actually kind of fun. Like, I enjoyed it. You can tell that it's it's not a like full-fledged event. It's kind of on the smaller side, but it is enjoyable. And some people were the initial reaction to it this morning was very lackluster. People were like, this isn't crazy. This isn't like, there's not a ton to do. Like, why are the devs not doing a whole lot? Well, leading back to the main story about, all of the other major announcements that happened, they decided, clearly they've been working on many things in the background. And let's try and dig into that a bit. So let's talk about seasons first.
All right.
So the seasons are basically going to work on both a free and a premium track. So if you've played games like Destiny 2, where you pay a little bit of money, you get put on the paid track, which means every level you get bonuses or unlocks and stuff like that. Versus the free track, you might get them every once in a while, or less than the premium track. These rewards are most likely going to be bind on pickup. So and a lot of them are going to, the free track, for instance, includes skins, marks of fortune, boosts, weapons, armor, umbral shards, gypsum, material caches, and pets.
Ooh, what's that last one?
Yes, they did say pets.
They did say
I'm
pets.
not sure if I'm thinking it's housing stuff, because they didn't have like a full like pet system announced on the on the actual
Yeah,
roadmap.
that would.
It wouldn't surprise me if they kind of snuck something else in there.
Yeah, that would be quite the thing to sort of like announce but not announce, if you know what I mean.
So then from there, the premium track includes skins, marks of fortune, boosts, seasonal loot. Purchasing premium will also grant you the premium track rewards up to your progress retroactively. So, for instance, if you make it to level, the level 100 on it, and get all the way to the end, you can just buy the season pass and retroactively get all of the rewards.
That's
so if you're
cool.
unsure that you're going to do all of the seasonal grinding, then you can go the free route and decide at the end whether or not it's worth it. They did also mention that one of the upgrades on, I believe, the free track is also going to be a gear slot, which we'll talk, or gear storage set slot, which we'll talk more about later.
Okay.
Yes. So seasons are basically a means to tie together a bunch of different changes into a unified experience and build a story narrative and arc, bringing it all together. This is going to include kind of chapters when they have new content, new storylines that are going to be specific, new quests that are going to be specific to that, so they'll be very temporary. So basically adding content to kind of increase the narrative in the game.
Yeah.
An interesting set of changes. I actually really like this idea.
And they're going to have like from a PvE / sort of narrative sort of standpoint, they're having like chapters. So like the story kind of broken down into various different sort of like segments as you go through, as well as like a challenges thing, which seems to be interesting. Like,
Yes. So it's also going to have like an activity card.
That looks interesting.
Which is going to allow you to choose certain things to kind of aim to complete, and allow you to basically like bingo card your way through the event or through the season to get all of the seasonal XP, which you need to get higher and higher levels and unlock more stuff. Some of the stuff that they've put on here as examples for some of the lower level point things are salvage tier 5 items, and they want 5 of them. They've got kill 10 enemies with magic, gather tier 5 resource nodes, 5 of them. So like you're going to be able to complete a lot of different various odds and ends to complete these things, and you're also going to be able to re-roll potential tasks. So like you're not stuck doing ones that you don't necessarily like, or once you've completed all of the ones you like, you can turn around and go, okay, hey, let me just re-roll and see if I can get a better set to run off of.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Like I think I think some people may sort of say that it's a little bit PvP light on the sort of activities and stuff like that, but like I think one of the reasons for that is because humans, players are very notorious at being able to circumvent sort of like the challenge by basically coordinating with each other in order to actually get those things done. So it's like, in order to not make those activities just basically super easy by colluding with other players in order to get them done, the incentive is more to sort of like err on the side of caution and do PvE activities in these activity cards. It's not like there's no PvP activities, because like in the activities that they're showcasing, at least in the images that they've shown, like you have things like earn a flawless victory in PvP, in a PvP arena, say, for example. So there are PvP activities in there. It's just don't be surprised that there is probably more PvE activities than PvP activities in there. There's a earn Azoth Salt, which is on the PvP reward track, so that's pretty cool as well. But yeah, so there's There's ways and means
So-
that they've been able to figure out like slightly less abusable sort of activities from a PvP standpoint, which is good.
Yes. So some of the other cool stuff here is the first season is going to start a new storyline that we have not previously been involved in. So the first season narratively will focus on the Silver Crows, a mercenary group, against the Vangarian Knights, and it will go into and through the new expedition, the Empyrean Forge.
That's cool.
So I'm pretty excited about that. Talking a little bit more about the season 1, the new expedition has the Vangarian Knights that are referred to as Forged, which require a new ward, possibly Bane set of gear. So if you're looking to prep for that, there's going to be new stuff to get a hold of. There's also most likely going to be a good amount of fire damage in the dungeon.
I would imagine so, yeah.
So that may be something that you want to tank for.
Yeah.
They also announced that during Season 1, the gear set storage system, something that they've been talking about for a little while now, will be released. And this will also be going... all of this from Season 1, I believe, is going to be going onto the PTR.
Soon.
A good portion of the stuff from Season 1 will be going on the PTR starting tomorrow.
Oh, nice. Okay.
This includes
Tomorrow
the gear
being...
storage system, as well as several other the storylines, the season pass type stuff, and all that.
Okay. Tomorrow,
some of the other stuff here.
Just a real quick thing, like tomorrow, as you say, and as we're recording this, tomorrow being Thursday, the 23rd of February.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And just to be clear, the PTR tomorrow will include the combat balance updates, new seasonal story with the Silver Crows, a change to make good notifications, alt character mitigation. We're specifically talking about stuff that's going to be on the, for people who have several characters on one world, preventing them from basically using many alts to do PvP with. For wars and such, basically forcing them to choose a primary. Gear set storage, the new expedition Imperium Forge, the new Heart Rune ability, and in the coming weeks they're also going to be releasing the Springtide Bloom event on there as well. So that's what you can look forward to tomorrow on that. Additionally, during Season 1, they are going to be releasing a continuation of where they left off, where they redid the new player experience all the way up to level 20.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to be continuing the main storyline rework, starting from Everfall, where it left off, and continuing on. I believe their target is to hit like level 40 with the content. And then later in the year, they're going to finish and wrap it around to make it to level 60.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to be concentrating and revamping the quests around Weavers Fen and Brightwood as well. So, like, that's on their sort of overhaul roadmap, as it were, which is good.
So, additionally, we're going to see the return of the Corrupted Rabbit Easter type event. They've promised a couple of changes to this event, so I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but they might the rabbits might actually attack this time.
I really hope so.
I really hope they do,
because that was what I think a lot of people were hoping on the first Rabbit's Revenge, and it was just a reskin of the regular rabbits that you just went up and killed, and it was just like. We were expecting demon rabbits that basically flew into your neck and like decapitated people, but like it didn't happen. So like a lot of people were like really, disheartened at like the sort of like the just the overall kind of idea of the Rabbit's Revenge, sort of like in the Corrupted Rabbits sort of thing. So hopefully they've done a little bit more work to make this more of an interesting event.
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
So that's some of the changes. They're also going to during season 1 have the Springtide Bloom event, and then they started talking about PvP updates. And I know a lot of people, this was a sore topic about functionally the roadmap was pretty light on PvP, but like they had promised that there was more to it, and there is a lot more to it.
Yes.
And I think if people are still upset at this point, then really there's no making them happy. Just simply put, like, it is what it is. So the PvP updates are going to include red indicators for enemy AoE. So this will mean that AoE effects like healing circles and enemy, ice storms and stuff like that will show up a different color than friendly. So this basically will make combat a lot easier to determine where you need to stand to be safer, versus what's dealing damage to you.
Yeah.
Which I think is really the right way to go with that. They're going to be obviously, they've announced this before, the cross-server OPR, which is a huge step forward. It's going to allow, basically region-wide queuing for OPR. So if you're on a low-population server, you don't really have to worry too much because you're going to be queuing with the rest of North America East, for example. So that's another huge one.
That is great.
They're also going to be making some changes in OPR. So some of this is particularly targeted at anti-range. So the musket and the bow are the particular targets of this change. They're going to be changing the OPR base doors to make them less susceptible to piercing damage.
Oh, that's good.
So you can't just sit there and farm damage on the doors
Using
from range with no risk.
Yeah. That's good. That's really good, actually. And that makes a lot of sense, right?
I'm going to double check. There's a question in chat about the ETR.
I really like this. I really like the fact that they're kind of doing this. And the other kind of thing is, a lot of the time it's sort of like the range play that kind of does create a downwards negative pressure against sort of like close range play. I think everybody has felt it. Everybody has kind of felt it in some way, shape, or form. There are those instances that people like to utilize and like to showcase as an example of why range play is so horrendously overpowered compared to close range play or sort of like builds that are even light but are close range or close to medium range. A lot of the times, a lot of those sorts of things, you have the examples being shown as basically being horrendously exaggerated, right? I think the one that's popped up on Reddit fairly recently was essentially somebody running straight into a musket player, and it's kind of like that doesn't showcase the problems and the difference, the issues between the two different kind of styles of play. It really just showcases somebody who is terrible at fighting somebody, who's running a musket and potentially a rapier. When you have much more, much clearer examples of a good fight between a sort of close range player and a longer range player, where they both are kind of getting into awkward scenarios, awkward situations, but both you can kind of see are actually understand the game, understand how to approach each player, and how to either as the close range player trying to get the long, trying to make ground on the long range player, knowing how to do that without basically just running straight at them, as well as the range player basically being able to know how to dictate range, know how to sort of get themselves out of a tight spot kind of thing. Like that's the kind of examples, those are the kind of videos that you want to see, not the ones which are, you know, a clear example of somebody not knowing what to do in those situations. But like, I think overall, on an overall balance, like, it is tipped towards the range player, and I think the changes that they have coming up will help with that. Will definitely help with that.
Additionally, because these changes are they're going to help with most things, but like in some cases, range is just wildly overpowered. One of the other changes they're going to be making inside OPR is potentially adding like kind of like a veil type system to prevent people from shooting Baron from outside the pit. So you're going to have to go in there to actually take out Baroness.
Well, they do that fairly.
Which I think is a very good idea.
I think they do that like in terms of obfuscating the ease of being able to look quite a range, like pretty well with the with the corrupted breaches, right? Like, it's always been a case when a corrupted breach kind of comes down, like your view, your perception of like, sort of like outside or like the perception through it is like really, really limited. If they do something similar to that, that'd be pretty cool.
So that's another really good change. From there, later in the year, they've also announced a new arena map. I know people have been hoping for a new OPR map, but they're going to start with a new arena map. And I would assume in the future we're also going to get a new. They haven't confirmed it for this year, but I would assume that we're going to get a new OPR map at some point too. I think this is obviously their way of testing it out on a easier platform. With the arenas being significantly smaller and relatively easy to design in comparison to a full-scale OPR map.
I think that's a good direction, a good kind of like first foray into that, because the issue with like a new OPR map is people basically dipping out, right? To play the map that they prefer rather than the map that they're sort of like handed as a dice roll, right, when they start the OPR. That's a little bit less of. I mean, I'm not saying like it's not an issue or won't be an issue, but it's less of an issue in arenas because a lot of people queue up, either 2s or 3s into the arena, and it's less likely that you're going to basically dip out of that with and leave two of your mates like to try and fight 3 players like just because you don't like the map, right? So it's less likely that the sort of people dipping out as a preference is going to happen. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen. It is going to happen in some way, but it's going to be like total. If it does happen, like there's going to be more likely that there's going to be maybe one person left to fend for himself in an OPR match, not an OPR match, in an arena match, if people do dip out. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Absolutely. So, and then from there, they also announced some updates to the territory influence. And basically how you put a territory into the option for war. In a prior Forged in Aeternum episode that I just linked in chat there, they did talk a little bit about what they're hoping for. They did talk about this as well on the dev update today. Functionally speaking, what they're looking to do is to make it so that not every territory can be pushed at all times, giving the defense an option to really, have a sense of actually being able to win, instead of just being a consistent fight until, one side goes to bed and the other side eventually wins out. This will be, timed-based things, so you'll have a limited amount of time to build up the influence meter and functionally be able to actually, take things on and have a more robust set of content with it. the goal is also by limiting the number of zones that are active for this this push at any time. It also means that it's going to focus PvP in certain areas, and they're going to be rewarding PvP very differently as part of this change. So it's going to be, they're hoping to recreate the magic that was the Great Cleave by kind of focusing a lot more people in one area at one time and kind of changing up the system. So we're looking forward to seeing what that means. Obviously, there's not a ton of details right now. And as we get more information, we'll, of course, have it on the show and we'll talk about it. So, as we hear more, you'll hear more.
There was a little bit of discussion with the, what AGS is kind of like thinking of in terms of like the second variation of the territory kind of gameplay or territory warfare sort of like systems and mechanics. It was back in a Forge and Aeternum video entitled Territory Game. We did cover this in a previous show. If you want to go back and check that out, that's fair enough. If you want to go back and watch it, like it's literally on Play New World's kind of
I like that in chat at the beginning of my thing.
Oh right, yeah, cool, okay. But yeah,
so from there, they also talked about balance changes. So obviously, like, there has been a lot of people complaining about balance changes, and we were expecting to see balance changes in the prior PTR. Unfortunately, they didn't have a chance to put that in the prior PTR. Something held it up. I believe we now know what that something was. It was the changes to the musket. Basically, they're changing muskets to, instead of be 100% accurate, there is now an inaccuracy effect and an anti-quickscoping type thing. So just because you pull up your rifle and line up the shot, if you pull it up really quickly and you pull the trigger immediately, it's not necessarily going to hit where you're aiming. And I think that is a great way to reduce the effectiveness of the weapon for PvP. Obviously with PvP, you've got a lot of people that are a lot more, they're going to dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge on you. And they're going to be a lot more cagey to hit than in PvE, where, frankly, the NPCs are a little easier to hit. They're quite a bit more consistent. They tend to telegraph their moves once you learn their entire moveset. Like, it's relatively easy to deal with in PvE. So this is a really good way for them to kind of throw the brakes on the musket as such a pain in the ass weapon that it is. Additionally, we all know that muskets like to run light armor. You get that damage buff, but there's going to be some pretty solid nerfs coming to light armor. This will include the resilient and shirking fortification, which are going to be less effective on light armor. So this basically means, if you're going to use light armor, in their words, you're going to be basically you're going to have to build to be a glass cannon, and you're going to have to accept that with higher damage comes much higher risk to your safety. And I think that is very fair. Let's see, from there, Hatchet. Many people have complained about the Defy Death perk, which basically allows you to go invulnerable for a little while. It is the only weapon that allows you to do that for a long duration. And this will be changing. They're going to be reworking how Defy Death works. So it is not a, I'm going to hack and slash even though I should not have any HP left by a long shot, and can probably kill you before I go die, or it's a automatic escape because I can run away without taking damage. That's obviously not how it was intended, but they feel that the change is needed on that. From there, ranged weapons are going to be receiving buffs for PvE in a variety of different ways. There's going to be a slight rework, so they refer to it as a slight rework on the Fire Staff. And they've promised to give similar reworks to other weapons, kind of like one per season, if they can keep on that cycle. Just to kind of like keep weapons fresh and make sure that everything's kind of keeping up the quality, which I think is a very, very good thing to do at this point in the game. Gives new life to some weapons. Obviously, like there are certain abilities that are just a bit useless when it comes to certain weapons, and just nobody uses them. So it'd be nice to change those out, or make those more effective by changing what they do. They're also to kind of buff Ice Gauntlet, Fire Staff, and Void Gauntlets. They're going to be removing the elemental resistance affix from mobs in mutations. This is to make sure that Ice, Void, and Fire are relevant in mutations, so that if you're a Fire Staff main, and it's Fire weak for mutations, and everything's got a fire resistance, you basically either don't get to use your primary weapon that you like, or you're screwed, or you're going in and nobody wants to queue with you because you're not effective. So this will make it so that everyone is effective with every weapon, and kind of open up some options for other people. So past the weapon changes, they've also announced some crafting changes. So during Season 1, this is what they're aiming to release. Changes to XP gains and reworks. So first time crafting bonuses in the last 6 months here, I can't remember exactly when it was basically announced and launched and put at about 200% XP. So if you craft something that you've never crafted before, you would get a 200% buff in your XP or your post 200 what's the word for it?
I know what you mean. The kind of like the circuits.
It's eluding me. The word's eluding me for the moment, but your post 200 skills, it's going to allow you to go through that faster. The change is that they're now going to bump that up to 300%.
Oh, that's cool.
What's even better is that they understand that a lot of people used the first time crafting bonuses to level before, and some of those people might feel a little bit bent out of shape. That I only got 200% for mine, and these new people are getting 300% for theirs. Mm-hmm. Well, they're resetting everybody, so everybody's first craft for everything will be reset, so you can get that bonus off of everything. That's cool. You still maintain your post 200 levels, all that. It's basically just saying, and it's wiping the system's memory to say, you've done this craft before. So if you making a steel fire staff, for the first time is, even though you've done it 1,000 times before, when this launches, you'll get a 300% buff the first time you do it. They're also going to be changing Arcane. Moat combinations were widely viewed as not rewarding in any way, and kind of boring. They have changed the way that works now, and bumped up the XP rewards for it substantially. Additionally, they're going to be changing how cooking leveling works. Basically, the old meta for cooking was make meals.
Yeah, it was just meals.
Because you needed whatever amount of stuff. You just needed to go collect the highest tier of item, as much of it as you could, and then fill in the rest with just shit that you had a ton of.
Well,
which really wasn't good gameplay. It was just kind of like there was no reason to craft anything else.
Yeah, I tried, because I remember I tried grinding through cooking for the Return to Aeternum event, and it was a case of like, it would be nice if I could get the first craft bonuses and stuff like that for all the other various different things, but it required all sorts of manner of like, very, very specific things. And that's so different.
You weren't really rewarded very well for going out and finding those nuanced items.
Not at all.
Versus now, it's now going to be worth going and actually crafting other meals, other things. Cooking recipes and stuff like that. Because one, you're going to get that 300% bonus, but two, you're going to be able to rapidly gain levels because they're going to be worth it XP wise.
I mean, I hope so.
Which I think is just great. Reaching 200, making you feel like Gordon Ramsay if he was working at McDonald's.
Very
basically
much
just
so.
throw out as many burgers as you can, and you somehow ended up as a master chef, and it was like that's not quite how that works. So I like the idea of having a little bit more variety being rewarded in that.
Oh yeah.
So, and the changes don't stop there. They've also stated that bags and tools will now support both scarabs and stopwatches, effectively allowing you to craft near perfect equipment with pretty much everything you could want on it guaranteed. This is going to remove much of the uncertainty when it comes to crafting tools and bags, and should also lower the price of these pieces of equipment substantially.
Oh, it should, yeah.
I know, obviously, using both the runestone stopwatch and a scarab on something is still going to make it somewhat expensive, but at least you're not trying to craft, a full T5 gear bag, 90 times and getting shafted every time by random perks.
I mean, if you're unlucky, it'll be like 90 would be a nice kind of like an okay number to go through, but like sometimes it could be quite considerably more than that unless you actually use some of the well, up until now, so from there, a major crafting quality of life bonus here is that crafting will now remember what you used the last time for a recipe. Yes.
So if you were crafting with all T5 stuff, it will automatically load in what you had used before. So instead, like if you had to close out of a menu or you finished your crafting, and you popped back into the menu to do it again, you used to have to repick everything, and be like, okay, hey, I'm only ever going to be crafting with this same shit anyways. Let me just, set this to the absolute minimums, the first time. And, this is an absolute win for crafters. This is something that's been asked for long amounts of time.
If you're trying to craft a best in slot, item, you're not trying your ultimate goal is to craft a best in slot full armor set for a certain kind of thing, right? You're not crafting one, you're not going on for one go on each of them at a time. You're crafting a whole bunch of them, a whole bunch of one kind of thing at one time, and it's just that makes a lot of sense that it'll remember and pre-select it when you come back to it. It's just, it's going to be so much less hassle, less clicks, less situations where you're looking onto Amazon kind of going I should probably buy a new mouse because the one that I had is knackered. Yeah. So naturally, that's a huge bonus. Another really annoying thing that has happened, especially for ranged players, is looting chests and getting, the classic iron arrow or iron bullets. Basically the world's most useless shit out of the box. That is no longer going to be a thing. Instead,
If you roll that it's going to drop ammo, it will drop based on your level and the level of the area that you're in. So for instance, if you're farming in a low tier area, you're probably only going to get like tier 3 ammo, even though you're level 60. That said, if you're in a level 60 area, it's going to be dropping Asmodium ammo. So people who have been basically, farming and building ammo for a long time in the T5 and making a shitload of money, your market is about to get dumpstered by the inevitable world tour, just shitloads of ammo getting dumped onto the market.
Okay.
So that will also lower the cost of operating T5 muskets, T5 bows, and making them much more reasonable as weapons instead of just money pits that you throw money into damage. So that is another big buff. They also talked about a dashboard that they are able to see the amount of materials being generated in the world, as well as the amount of materials, those same materials, exiting. And one of the most egregious things out there in terms of being generated but just not being used were wooden coins.
Right.
Like, just not even close, not like no one's using them. Like they're stupid hard to use. So what they're going to allow people to do is they're going to allow them to turn wooden coins into charcoal. So it would be another option for that. If you have stacks and stacks of wooden coins, you now have an actual resource that is somewhat valuable because it can be turned into charcoal and level your smelting a little bit, as well as being able to sell some stuff off.
I mean, I would think that turning a resource that is currently pointless into something that is at least somewhat worthwhile is good. I would have thought that maybe something slightly better than charcoal, but I can understand charcoal. Like you burn wood turns into charcoal.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, little wooden coins turn into nice little bits of charcoal.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense to me. I mean, for the most part, they're not particularly useful. They're not useful almost at all to begin with. So it'll be a good way for people to use up the just massive amounts of them that are laying around. Additionally, in season 1, this is the last thing they hope to fix for season 1. Is fixing tooltips to better guide people to the right place to find more of the resource. So, for instance, if it's saying, iron, it's going to guide you a little bit more precise to where you can find more iron. Instead of, or like another example would be, spices. Telling you which regions you need to go farm hyssop in to go get certain spices.
That's good, at least.
So basically, instead of basically forcing you to go to newworlddatabase.com or nwdb.info, it's now they're hoping to have a few less reasons to exit the game to find information that they feel they should have been offering to begin with. So then for season 2. They already started talking about some of the stuff that they want to release there. They're going to be updating the fishing mechanics a little bit and changing the way the loot table works for fishing. So basically, we could see a bit of a buff to fishing coming up here. And the utilization of fishing resources.
Okay.
So
okay.
Functionally, this is going to be a pretty big change. They didn't go into super detail on this. Obviously, there's a bit of time until season 2, but I'm pretty excited for what I heard. The fishing mechanic is already pretty fun. I think that changes to that to give us kind of like version 2 fishing would be kind of nice. I appreciate that as a thing to touch on. They they were hesitant to commit to these in season 2. But in their words, there's a soft commit on these for season 2. And that they are obviously a large priority for them to actually make that work. I forgot to mention the other major one. Using higher. This is another buff to crafting here, coming in season 2, hopefully. XP. You will get more XP for using higher quality materials trying to build something. So for instance, if you were using an all, runic leather T5 legendary stuff across the board, you are going to get much more XP than using the absolute minimum requirements.
Okay, so if you were
it's
just
giving
like
you a lot more bonus to use the high end stuff, because obviously, like,
so
if you're, if you think about it, like, if you're using shit materials all of the time, are you really going to become a true master craftsman? Or if you're using the finest materials, learning how to use them in a proper way, and all of that, you should be rewarded with higher and higher levels of experience to kind of build off of that.
Because a lot of the time when you're kind of like grinding crafting levels, what you're doing is you have to apply at least one of those materials to be like the T5 material that you need for that build. But more often than not, there is only one of those, and you're basically, you're basicing everything else that you can to be the lowest level kind of stuff that you can, because, you don't want to be taking all of the time to go and essentially grind through all of those other additional resources and, refine all of those other additional resources just for like no additional increase in XP. So, having that increase in XP because you're using not just one type of T5 material, one type of advanced material, but like all of the inputs are advanced materials, and that's really good. That's
so
that,
the other
really good.
The other thing, and Feruza brings this up in chat, is like using silver ingots to level jewel crafting is no longer going to be the norm, because you're going to want to use platinum. Which is going to change the equilibrium a little bit, because platinum, oftentimes people are just converting platinum to Asmodean. Yeah. So like, if this is going to change things a little bit on that front as well. So you might see a bump in value in the higher level stuff here. Like the higher level crafting materials might become a little bit more valuable here.
I mean, they might end up becoming as valuable, or like they might, like the high level versus low level materials like might actually end up in a value kind of sort of like a value distribution to how they should have been at the start of it, because there's more value to higher level materials. Or there will be, at least.
Instead of just using mass low-level materials to level, the equation has shifted to the point where it's now worth using the high-level stuff. So the low-level stuff is now being, trickled up through its refining processes into, the end process material that'll actually be used and be valuable. So that, that could actually be, there could be some interesting effects on the market long-term from these changes. So. But that's expected for season 2. Again, soft commit on that, but we'll see how it goes.
So
from here, this is where things just fucking go crazy.
just before we kind of like go through this, like from a season perspective, right? Are we looking at season 1 being basically sort of like the springtimey kind of period-ish that we're kind of in to some degree, and then like season 2 is going to be sort of like summer?
So this is explained actually really well on our next topic.
Oh, okay, cool. Then let's jump in.
Our next topic, which this is what kind of like set Reddit ablaze in great ways, because everybody remembers the roadmap that they released earlier this year. That was basically, hey, here's what you can expect for spring and summer. And it was a relatively small amount of detail. There wasn't a ton of things on there. I know PvP people were like, we feel like we were completely neglected. You know, but Amazon kept saying, guys, there's more. We're just not ready to like say what there is because there's more coming. We just, like it was basically trust us. Like there's more coming.
Yeah.
And this led us to the roadmap that they released today, which you'll see season 1 in spring, season 2 in summer, season 3 this fall, and season 4 this winter. So you got 4 seasonal stories. You'll see in the fall there's obviously some bigger stuff going on. But the absolute biggest stuff here is just colossal. Like this is game changing shit. This is this is the stuff that they needed.
Yeah, this is the stuff that people have been were like crying out for. But
so let's hit on this in order because like if we just hit the big stuff, then it doesn't make as much sense. But let's talk about what we can expect in spring. So season 1, these are going to follow the story arcs as we mentioned earlier, as well as the season passes, which are going to give rewards for each of these as well.
Right.
So how this is going to work is you're going to get the seasonal story in spring. You're going to get gear set storage in spring. You're going to get the new expedition, which is the Empyrean Forge. You're going to get the new Heart Rune, which is the fire.
The fire kick or whatever it is. Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank. Firestorm. Firestorm Heart Rune. The seasonal and world events associated with that time frame, which are going to include the Bloom event as well as the
Crassus,
the Corrupted Rabbit event
and Corrupted Rabbit.
The continued MSQ update. They're also promising what we've been asking for forever, and they said was in the works: colored outlines for enemy AoEs in PvP.
Oh, thank God!
So you will be able to see friend versus foe healing circles, as well as AoE effects for weapons, and all that. So basically, where can I stand safely becomes a much easier question to answer visually.
Yeah, it'll be a case of don't cross the red line. Like I believe they were talking about, like it's gonna have like some kind of like red outline, if it's like a hostile. So like essentially, if you're crossing into an area with an AoE effect and it has like a red outline of some form, like we're yet to see it. Like this is just basically going on what was said in the dev update video, right? If it has a red outline around it, that means danger. I think that's pretty universal.
It either means danger or not for you. So like if it's a healing circle and it's red, it's not going to hurt you, but
I mean, it's not
going to help.
It may debuff you a little bit to some degree, but it's not a good idea.
So additionally, in spring, we're also going to see the balance updates that we talked about and the season pass.
Nice.
Of course, season pass is going to be a reoccurring thing. Balance updates are going to continue to happen through the years, so we're not going to mention those last couple. As well as the seasonal and world events are going to continue to happen across the board as well. So, just assume that we see them, you see them. Let's talk about the bigger ones here.
Right.
So in summer, Blood of the Sands is going to come out, and this is season 2. So there's going to be a seasonal story. There's going to be transmog, so the ability to change the way your armor looks. I think this is going to be just this is going to be what people needed to make a lot of armor sets actually look good, or use some of the armor sets that kind of drop in the world, but you can't craft, and oftentimes don't drop with the right perks, but you really like the way that it looks.
It's that
this is
meme
going to be a really
the,
good thing to have.
Yeah, it's the meme of the knight, using a tiny little, like, what looks to be a toy shield, right? Because it has the best stats in the game. You can actually now transmog that out, or you will be able to transmog that.
The full Death Knight look with the pink, Hello Kitty shield, because it just has stats that you can't ignore. And this is of course a much better way to do it. It's going to allow people to to craft really great armor, and then people will buy that armor not caring what it is because they can change the way that it looks, and it's less of this like, oh hey, my character has to look ridiculous with 5 different sets of armor, or I have to buy skins to make this work. Like the transmog system is going to be very, very nice on that. Yeah. There's also going to be a season trial, which is a 10-person battle, which they have not told us anything about.
That is a mystery, and that is a new one, right? Like,
yeah.
And
from there, we have heard about the Sandworm Elite trial. That was leaked information initially, and then they confirmed that they wanted to do a 20-person raid fight. Which of course leads into the next thing, which is raid groups. So changing the way groups work in game. So currently you can only have 5 people in a group. Obviously, if you're in a 20-man fight and let's say you've only got 3 healers or 5 healers, in that maybe you don't have enough healers for 1 in every group of 5. It becomes really difficult for healers to do their thing. So having a new raid group setup and UI setup is probably going to be pretty important for something like that.
Yeah, especially
so I can see why those are tied all together there.
Very much so.
From there, they're also going to release a new heart rune. That is, of course, not announced yet in terms of what it's going to be. Just it's going to be there. They've prior announced the cross-world outpost rush. Mm-hmm. When they refer to cross-world, this is region-wide queuing. So, for instance, if you're playing on North America East, regardless of the server that you're on, when you go to queue for Outpost Rush, you are now queuing with everyone else in North America East.
Yeah, when they
this
say...
This means that if you're on a low population server and you're like, oh, we never get OPR to pop, because there's just not enough people on this server to do it, well, now you're queuing with the rest of the region, and that becomes much less stressful because, you need 32 people in all of North America East to queue up before it triggers the next Outpost Rush. So That's a lot easier to do than one server at a time.
Exactly. The terminology there when they mean worlds is their terminology for worlds is server, right? So that's what they mean. Cross server. Yep. When they mean cross world, like when they say cross world, read cross server.
Yep. And as we said, seasonal world events, balance updates, season pass.
Yep, and summer it's going to be, so it would be the summer medley, right?
Yes, that'll be the summer medley fair with some new changes to it as well.
And that's probably where
they have hinted at some new stuff there. Mm-hmm. So fall is where things kind of change. And you can see it's got 2 columns, and we're going to ignore the shiny one for a moment. So season 3, they're going to continue the MSQ update. I believe they're trying to, by the end of winter, get it to level 60. Cool. So basically rework the entire story all the way up. And they're going to do a perk balance update in fall, as well as a seasonal and world events, as well as territory influence updates. This is going to be a rather large change to the way that the territory influence works. With some brand new mechanics. They haven't announced, much of that. They've announced some of their intentions. We talked about them a little bit earlier in the show. We also linked to their Forged and Aeternum video on territory influence. So if you're curious, go check out those. They're worth a watch. We also covered it in the prior show as well, back in January.
I kind of feel like that feel like that update in the fall, the season update, is going to be quite significant from a PvP standpoint, because like not only are you going to get like a sort of a rehashing and a kind of like a refreshing of the influence, like the territory PvP influence game, but you're also getting a rejigging, hopefully a bunch of perks becoming more relevant with that perk balance update, because like honestly the perk balance is like it's a very much a necessary thing to do, but also it's an extremely complicated thing to do. And I think coming at it like not really thinking or like just having a stab at it, like with not really too much thought involved in it, is probably a bad way of doing it. So, having a good length of time to really kind of to really figure out where perks need to be, or which perks need to be, strong, not so strong, changed in order to actually be a little bit, more like more useful or more viable. Like it's going to take some time to do, but I think that's going to be worth it.
So
yes,
and of course, there's going to be a season pass for fall as well.
Yeah.
Now for the big news. They announced a full expansion to the game this fall. This will include a new story. One of the current zones is going to be completely transformed. There will be a new expedition. They've also announced mounts. That is official. That is actually the word they used, mounts.
Yeah, mounts.
So that is 100% going to be a thing. A new weapon, a new heart rune, and one of the more controversial ones is the gear score increase. Which is an interesting one, but at the same time, like, that is kind of like, whenever you make a gear score based MMO, like, I do feel like almost 2 years in is not a bad time to increase the gear score. Like, like it was kind of inevitable, and it has been a decent amount of time since they've done it.
Yeah.
So like I'm not too upset about that. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that. So let's break this down a little bit further before we talk about winter. So a zone transformed. I personally think, based on the changes that they've made so far, the current lack of an expedition in this zone, and its overall utility as a region, I believe that First Light is going to be the region that is transformed and changed. Personally, I really like First Light the way that it is, and I kind of wish that they would just create a new zone somewhere else. But if I was going to pick a zone that really isn't utilized all that much, has already, like, because Cutlass Keys shares basically the same biome as it. It currently has no quests. They were all taken away when they revamped the early game, and they removed it as a starting zone. It, functionally speaking, is just not, it's in the right place to be the zone that they pick.
Yeah.
In my opinion. That said, I could be totally wrong, and they could throw a curveball and, redo ebb and scale for all I know. Like,
Yeah, but
it is what it is.
it feels like it feels like First Light will be the one. Like, and I mean, we did kind of approach the topic when we had our the interview with Katie and with Dave, right? Like, it was one of those things
and at
where
the time they weren't willing to nail down what they were going to do with it.
No,
but they also didn't really say that it was going to get it was an interesting way that they answered the question at the time. If you guys are curious, we did have basically a 2-hour long dev interview with Katie and David. So please go check that out. It's one of our videos from back in December. Tons of interesting topics, and it's more of like an in the mind of type thing, because obviously, like, there's only so much they could tell us at the time, but it really allowed us to kind of see where their heads were, and kind of build questions and ask the, like, what would they do? Like I think one of my favorite questions, because, like, oftentimes you get the, like, political answer when you ask a question of, well, we're not ready to talk about that officially. Well, okay, instead of asking it that way, ask it as, if you had an unlimited amount of money and you could do anything with, any particular topic, what what would you do? Not what would the studio do, but what would you do?
Exactly.
And we got some interesting ideas out of them. Like I think that there's some really cool stuff that we were able to talk about that, talking about it in theory made things make a lot more sense. We talked about, when potentially swimming might make its way into the game. And some of the conditions around like why they would consider adding swimming, and some of the roadblocks on what currently prevents them from adding swimming. So there's a bunch of like nuanced topics that it's very conversational. It's designed to be it was designed to be a lot shorter than it was. Thank you, Katie and David, for sticking with us for what was a marathon. And I'm sure they thought it was going to be 30 minutes, and really we went for 2 hours.
Yeah, it was yeah. Can't say thank you enough on that one, like for sticking with it and being so jovial and polite about it. Like, yeah, we really did take the mic on that. Like, and yeah, hopefully everybody going into that, like if we do have another another sort of dev interview or get some sort of devs onto the show, everybody will be coming at that with more a better understanding of sort of duration and stuff like that. But yeah, like you guys should definitely check that out if you haven't checked it out before. Like, and we did do fairly extensive chaptering on that as well for you guys to check out, like if to sort of find the bits that you're interested in, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's interesting from a retrospective kind of standpoint, going back and looking at sort of or listening to sort of like the answers and sort of like the replies that they had of some of the things that we questioned them on, especially in light in light of the new information that we've got from this roadmap.
Absolutely. So that's obviously like the other interesting things here is that they're calling it an expansion. This is the first time officially in a public facing situation that they've referred to something as an expansion. They've referred to things as content releases. They've referred to things as, events, or they've referred to things as, releases or all kinds of different ways, but they've never used the word expansion. Other media sources have used the word expansion before, but not them directly. So this is an interesting change in vocabulary that has some people a little concerned. The concern is mostly that expansion could mean that it is a paid DLC, or a paid expansion to the game. We don't know, and I don't think that we should jump to the conclusion that it's going to be a paid release.
See, I don't think it will be,
because they haven't hinted that it. They like, I feel like they would tell people right away, like, hey, like, we're really excited about this expansion. I feel like they would mention that, like, yeah, but by the way, this is going to be our first paid expansion to the game. Like,
but like, if you look at like what's included in, or what's sort of like detailed in the expansion kind of like side of things, because they've separated them for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. If they've revamped a zone as an expansion, it's like, how does that work if you haven't paid? Like, do you not get access to the game at all? Like, because that wouldn't work. You would have to have access to the game. You'd have to have access to, the to the server that you're on. But what happens? Do you just not allowed in that zone? Like, that should, I can't see how that would work. So obviously it wouldn't
be a territory that you could capture then, if they were limiting it on in terms of like who could go in there. And you could do something cheeky like the Brimstone Sands suntan lotion quest. To prevent people from going in, but like, at the same time, like, that wouldn't work that well. No, like, it wouldn't be able to be something that would be a capturable territory, which of course, like, our theory of First Light being the zone is currently a capturable zone. So like, how would you keep people out of there if that's if it's not the way that works? So it's kind of this interesting odds and ends thing that's like,
Yeah.
I personally don't think it'll be a paid expansion. I think that the season pass system is going to bring in enough money for them that that a paid expansion
Yeah.
might not be the way to go.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one front. Like, they're already bringing in the season pass kind of thing, which should have a fair amount of value for people to sort of like throw money at AGS for. So long as they kind of do it well, right? As long as they get the keep the like really kind of like give people quality sort of rewards for those especially for the premium sort of like the premium track of the seasons, right?
As long as you feel like you're getting enough reward for the money, then a season pass works really well.
Yeah.
Obviously, like anytime you have changes to the microtransaction system of the game, I always like the one thing that I always fear across every game is that games will pull the classic CCP games, greed is good thing, where like they just become detached from reality about what microtransactions are. They forget the micro part of microtransactions.
Yeah, you should never.
So like we've seen it happen in other games, and developers need to understand that there is only so much you can bleed from people. So like I really hope that any other potential changes that might be coming, obviously, like if they're changing one thing and adding it to the shop, they may add other stuff. There's nothing announced or anything like that, but could happen.
It's all in the realms of possibility, right?
Yeah, I just and of course they did talk heavily during their thing about being anti-pay to win, and they want to make sure that like people aren't just paying to get paying to win. Like they're adamantly against that. So I think that is a good thing for them to do.
We'll see how pay to win or how advantageous the premium, like some of the bonuses or some of the rewards on the bonus track, or some of the rewards on the premium track, in terms of like bonus items and like bonus sort of bonusing items and that kind of thing. Like how well, like whether people kind of feel that is in some way pay to win. I don't expect that people will feel like that is fairly pay to win in any way, shape or form, but like you never know. But we'll see, right? We'll see. I definitely don't feel like AGS are trying to go the route of pay to win, because like there's 1,001 more egregious ways of being able to do that than providing a few like in-game bonusing items in the reward tracks or the premium reward tracks, considering that they're also providing the same sort of thing in the free tracks, right? So yeah. And other than that, like I think are we going to be jumping into the winter side of things? Right? Oh no, hang on. We had a chat about
fall or winter. Winter is our last one.
Yes.
Yep. So, and the reason that I was delaying is I wanted to rewatch a part of the thing before I said something, because there's one thing on here that is very different than the others. Obviously, seasonal story, seasonal trial with mutators, so adding mutations to other events, kind of cool. Okay. Season trinket. So
good point.
This item is going to be used for future seasonal events as well, and it's basically going to be leveled up each season to allow you to gain additional powers to help fight the seasonal stories and all of that. If you know what the artifact is in Destiny 2, it's very similar concept. Every season it gets reset, you build it up to its full potential, and basically just makes PvE a little bit easier for a variety of different things, and based on the content that you're playing. So kind of a cool addition to the game. I think that'll be another cool thing. They're going to hopefully finish out the MSQ update, which will they're hoping to get it to level 60 by the end of the year. We'll see how they do, but that's going to be another good one. A new expedition, a new heart room, seasonal world events, cross-world arenas, and expeditions. So this is going to make queuing for expeditions a lot easier because it's not just going to be your server, it's going to be all of North America East or all of Europe queuing up as one, which I think is huge.
That will be huge.
As well as seasonal territory control. They didn't really go into that.
That's a different thing.
I would assume we're going to get more information on that, but
because
that'll be an interesting one.
That's interesting because that's, we've already got the territory control updates coming in full, but this will be a different thing. Mm-hmm. I want to know what that's going to be. As well
as, of course, the season pass for winter. So, simply put, that is a shitload of content.
Oh, that is an absolute boatload of content.
Additionally, it has been pointed out to me by several people that there is an additional thing on this roadmap. There is an asterisk. This roadmap may change and does not include all planned content.
Yes.
As they said before, with the original 2023 roadmap that had spring and summer, which you can see spring and summer have many more things that were not listed before, but are now. This is, subject to change. One, things can shift around. They might not make certain windows for certain things, but they do plan. This is their plan on what they're hopefully willing to commit to. Mm-hmm. And additionally, there may be things that happened that are not on here, that they weren't confident whether it was going to land in summer or fall, and didn't want to promise something in case hit the fan.
Remember, this was I found the content roadmap from spring summer, just so people kind of get a good idea as like where we were versus where we're kind of like where we are now. Like there's a few more additional things on that. Just a few. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, nice.
So, simply put, that's the roadmap. There's a ton there. I'm excited. I think everybody should be excited. It's, it shows that, hey, obviously they're doing stuff. Obviously the team has not shrunk in size. They've confirmed, they confirmed a couple months ago that the team is actually larger than it was at launch. So obviously they're continuing to develop new stuff. They're continuing to change the game. They're continuing to do the balance passes, and we're, as of tomorrow, we're going to see a lot of the fruits of their labor on the test server. And I think that is vitally important, to people understanding that like this game's not going anywhere. Like the constant focus on the ebb and flow of the player base, and the concurrent users, is this unhealthy obsession with a number that just doesn't really matter. Because obviously, with seasons, it's going to be a change in how people interact with content in the game and how often people interact with it. I think the other major change here is going to be, adding a major expansion to the game with mounts and all of that. That's going to draw in a ton of people. Obviously we know nothing about the system itself that they plan on using, but this is going to be big. This is going to be big. This is going to be healthy. This is going to be exactly what we need. And I'm happy to see that. I think it shows that Amazon Games is not abandoning New World in any way, and it counters the narrative that some people have been trying to push, that the game was going to be shut down, or that the game was going to be that the cuts at Amazon were shelving tons of people off the team. The reality is Amazon Games is growing substantially. earlier in the show we mentioned this, but they just picked up publishing rights for Throne and Liberty, which is another MMO. Before that, we heard at the Video Game Awards that they picked up Blue Protocol as publisher, and they also picked up Tomb Raider as publisher. So like that's 3 huge games, 2 of those being MMOs, that they're going to be bringing to market on a global scale, and that's gonna be huge for them.
It will be, yeah, for sure.
So like I'm looking forward to seeing how they continue to grow as a company. Obviously, there's a lot of lessons learned. I am curious because this is a lot of this is focused with the San Diego studio. I'm very curious on where things are going to go with the other studios because they still have not announced their other in-house games that are in development. And I'm very curious to see where that's going to go and what lessons they've learned, which like I know one of the things that we've heard about is that they are developing another game that is currently untitled with another studio that they also they're basically co-developing, but they have decided to move away from the Azoth engine, as it's called now, for Unreal 5, which is obviously lessons learned. Azoth engine was a good attempt, but the Unreal 5 engine is going to be much easier to hire staff for and much easier to deal with in the long term.
I think in terms of starting up a new game company and all that kind of stuff, and Amazon has the their ethos as keeping as much internal as possible. I think trying to develop their own, even if it's a branch off of an existing engine, was a kind of a bridge too far to some degree.
So with that, we talked about the new Legacy of Crassus World Boss event. It's a relatively simple event that's currently ongoing. Recommend people check that out. You basically only got to do it once a day for 8 days.
Yeah.
And you're good to go. It's a pretty, I think it's actually a pretty fun fight. So like, there's going to be groups going around doing it. It's a good time.
I was hoping it was going to be a little bit more sort of involved, like Balfozu. It seems a little less sort of like that than the Balfozu sort of revenge, which was actually really cool when you had to, kill the sort of like the ads and then use basically and they drop something. You use those to sort of like to drop the Balfozu himself, right? Which I thought was like a really, really cool thing. I was sort of hoping that there was going to be something equivalent to that here, but it doesn't appear to be, unless I'm missing something. I'm not sure. I feel like I've played enough of them so far to sort of to know if there was something equivalent to that, but it doesn't feel like it. You kind of have to go through initially when the actual sort of site is starting up, taking out the sort of the flag posts and stuff. But other than that, I don't know. It's I mean, it's good for a change of scene, change of kind of thing, and running with a whole bunch of people. That's fair enough. But yeah, how have you found it? How have you found it?
I like it. Obviously, we were running it with way more people than we needed.
Oh yeah.
But it's enjoyable. It's a good time. It's a lot of hack and slash, and
yeah.
I got to break out my transient recovery greatsword, which
I think a lot of people are doing
I'm
that.
fully expecting that to get nerfed. So
yeah.
Kind of getting the most out of it in the short term.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna go for one more topic here, because I know I'm fading quickly tonight.
Yeah.
And of course we've already been on for a decently long show as is.
We're getting close to 2. We're getting close to 2 hours, so that's fair. Makes sense.
There was another Forged in Aeternum video on zone creation.
Oh, yes.
Mike Willett, Charles Bradbury, and Rosie Strizokowski covered what goes into zone creation. It was filmed back in November. So I do want to take a moment and talk about what the Forged in Aeternum series is for. It's meant to go and talk about a specific topic about the game. Some of them are going to be timely Q&As. You know, some of them are going to be, you know, here's an off topic, what goes into creating a new zone? What are our thoughts on territory control? You know, there's a ton of different things that, that they can cover in these. They're not meant to always be something, they're not meant to be the end-all be-all answering all questions at all times, because you just can't do that in the short-form content that they have. So I guess, like, frankly, I'm a little bit annoyed by the community that every time one of these gets posted to Reddit, the first response has nothing to fucking do with the video. Like, it just drives me up the goddamn wall. Like, I don't know why, because, like, I should expect that on Reddit, but, like, for some reason it'll be like, oh, this is tone deaf because, they're not addressing the current concern. And it was like, yeah, because they recorded it in November.
Yeah, and it's not like
it's February. They're not going to know what you picked to be butthurt about this week.
Exactly, and it's not like it's some kind of insider knowledge as to whether when they recorded it, they literally say it at the start of each one. This was recorded at this date, right? Like,
yeah,
literally,
and like it's supposed to be talking about a highly specific topic. For instance, in this one, talking about zone creation. What goes into it? What are the considerations around it? There's how does the music and sound tie in, to the full sensory experience of the new zone? Developing design documents and implementation, what the area should look like, how assets should interact, what mechanics are required to implement the designs, what story elements should be included, and how do those interact with the mechanics and the scenery, and how players are supposed to move through the region, following the plot line of the story.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of questions here, and there's a lot of things that they go in and consider about, basically telling the story of how they go about the process of building a new zone in the game. Yeah. And, like, this is one of those things where it's like, this video is a really great video for understanding the process of a development studio on how they go about the problem solving and understanding the project management behind creating something this large.
Yeah, very much so.
It's not meant to sit there and go, if the current debate is, are there enough, combat changes? That's not the topic of the video. And again, it was recorded in November, so, like, it wasn't going to be the topic of the video. And when they do address that, for instance, in the video that released today, the dev update for February, they addressed all of those concerns with, hey, here's where we're going with these mechanics. Here's, for PvP players, here are the considerations. Like, here are the things that we're developing specifically for the PvP crowd.
Yeah.
Which, like, in a not so subtle way is basically saying, here's your lollipop, go sit in the corner and shut the fuck up. Like, just, like, I know that's a bad take, but, like, frankly, the PvP player base can be, and I'm not saying all of them, because that would get me in a lot of trouble. I'm saying that a good chunk of them can be super toxic, shitty people. And they ruin things for the rest of people who are just sitting here like, hey, I'm enjoying things. I like things. don't shit on me for liking the game. Just because you're having a shit time and don't understand what grass feels like anymore doesn't mean that I have to have a shit time with you.
Yeah.
Like, I think that gets lost oftentimes in the ongoing discussion of things. And it just annoys the shit out of me. Like, and I say this as somebody who acts in a moderation role. Like, we've done a lot to curb a lot of the toxic behavior, but like there, and you can still see that like we don't infringe on opinion, we infringe on people being assholes when it comes to the subreddit. Like, because there's a difference. Like, you can be, you can give the most negative impression of something. Like, you cannot enjoy something. That's perfectly fair game. Like,
yeah.
It's when you change the idea that everyone else has to not enjoy it because you don't. That's when you cross the line and become toxic.
And I dare say that some content creators also, cross that line. And to some degree sometimes do it a little bit more egregiously because they almost encourage others to be as toxic or to spread that toxicity, which is,
because controversy sells, and that's one of the reasons why our show is the size that it is because we're not that controversial. We look at things in a logical way. We look at things as a way of going, hey, there are people out there who play PvE, there are people out there who play PvP. They're going to enjoy different things. There are people most of the player base plays both. And as with every group, there are just as many shitty people, percentage-wise, in the PvE pool of people that, are just shit people, as there are in PvP. The only difference is that oftentimes the PvPers are so much goddamn louder when they bitch, because it always has to do with, other people, and then other people get butthurt about it and they cause more bullshit, and
the phrase
suddenly you're down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, the phrase vocal minority is is what it is for a reason, right?
Yeah. Like, I feel like at one point we should just do like a full bad take episode just to show people like what we mean by like controversy sells. Just to firmly give people the example of like, this is how shit this could be.
Yeah.
And why it's better for us to just stay level-headed and be like, hey, there's stuff on this roadmap for PvP, there's stuff on this roadmap for PvE. If you're upset that PvP exclusive shit is not the main line of it, look back to all of the other PvP updates and notice what happens to the player base. Fuck all. But what happens when you release Brimstone Sands? Suddenly everyone and their mother comes out of the fucking woodworks. Who would have thought PvE drives gameplay most of the time? Content keeps people active. And I'm sure there are people out there who are going to say, yes, but good PvP content does that too. I agree. However, it is a much smaller player base of people that play hardcore PvP than, people who play casual PvE. For instance, look at the new Harry Potter game. It is selling phenomenally well. It is doing great. You're going to get 70 hours of content out of it. It's going to be one of the most played games this year probably of all time. It is a phenomenal game. Comes with a lot of controversy in the community, but it's a phenomenal game.
I was going to say
you cannot counter that, and I firmly believe that the game should be nominated for Game of the Year. Now, that's a controversial statement.
Whatever. Yeah, I was going to say that could be considered fairly controversial considering certain.
But when you look at it, it's a game that launched meeting and exceeding every expectation with very minimal bugs.
I would say
when was the last time you saw a AAA launch at this size with this few bugs in it? That's huge. On top of that, The entire game has no PvP. It is a single player experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, it's also tied to a story that a ton of people love. Yes, it's also tied to a whole bunch of other considerations, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I get that. That said, PvE drives in new people. Massive expansions on the PvE front will drive in new people. Some of those people will PvP.
Yeah.
That is just how it works. Most of those people will do both.
Mm-hmm.
But we saw using the 3v3 arenas as an example, we saw zero impact. And before people go, well, it's because the arenas weren't implemented well. No, we didn't know how they were going to be implemented well or not. So yes, we saw it on the test server, but the vast majority of people who are being marketed to didn't see that on the test server. No one came when they marketed that release.
Yeah.
So, functionally speaking, when you compare a PvP release to a PvE content-rich release, like Brimstone Sands, and you see the numbers that they saw, can you blame them for having the majority of items be focused on PvE?
Well, I get that, but I
while still also doing a decent amount of work on PvP. I don't want to discount the work that they are doing on PvP.
I do get where you're coming from, but I would say that the just the sheer volume, the sheer amount of things to do, additions to the game when it comes to Brimstone, it is far way beyond the content releases for PvP prior to that. The content releases for PvP prior to that were very small. A lot of them were just tweaks and you had sort of arenas coming in, that kind of stuff. It doesn't. There's no. It's a really bad comparison, is all I'm trying to say. If you had the sheer volume, the sheer weight of work done in terms of that PvPvE release with Brimstone Sands, leveraged into a sort of a content and updates and all that kind of stuff for PvP, you probably would see a decent.
I don't think that it would have
but
gotten anywhere near the same response. And I
mean,
fundamentally believe that also goes all the way back to why the game changed from a PvP all of the time game to a PvP flag system.
Well,
PvP was actually causing more problems than it was solving.
PvP does cause problems, yes, because not everybody, gels really well with a constant PvP and a constant presence of potentially losing all of your stuff or potentially losing a bunch of stuff, or having your progress basically set back to defaults to some degree, that an always on PvP or hardcore styled PvP game would kind of do, but there are halfway houses with that, and I think AGS did try and get to that halfway house. I think maybe they erred on the safe side of being a little bit more into the PvE side of things than the PvP side of things, because I think my personal opinion is a lot of the kind of stuff that could help with keeping a higher baseline of players playing the game would have benefited from basically more work going into revamping the territory controls, mechanics, the territory control, sort of systems and how people interact and interplay with it. We're hopefully eventually getting that by the end of the year, and I hope those sort of changes revamp it quite considerably to the point where it's actually fun and engaging. Because I recall, and I'm using a different IP with this, I do recall that you know, in Eve, we had a year-long war that had a ton of people, you know, utilize it, a ton of people basically involved in that constantly. And that was very much PvP related. That was very much player generated, player kind of incentivized, and very much territory control and territory sort of like, you know, surrounding the territory game, right? So like when I think of the possibilities of what a territory game can occur, or what territory sort of like events and territory things, sort of activities can occur in a game like New World or a persistent, you know, MMO, it's there can be a lot of really active like events. It's just finding the rights, just finding the correct recipe of all of the mechanics mixed with how people engage with those mechanics, really. Hopefully, fingers crossed, you know, New World will get there, but we'll see.
Yes. So with that, I think we should wrap it here.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank everybody for coming. It's been a good one. Please make sure to like, subscribe to the video, as of course with YouTube. That you're not monetized on YouTube either, so more help on that front, the better. Please spread the word, share with your friends, and you guys have a good one. See you in the New World.